Okay, let's try that again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm Adam Hart, curator and archivist at the nonprofit Media Burn Archive, based in Chicago, where we collect, produce, and distribute documentary and experimental video created by artists, activists, and community groups. Our mission is to use archival media to deepen context and encourage critical thought through a social justice lens. This event tonight with Eddie Becker and Ryan Watson is part of an ongoing series called Virtual Talks with Video Activists, which brings together media producers, scholars, and viewers to discuss the art and politics of video and of documentary. Upcoming events include Stephen J. Walsh discussing his Chicago documentary Southeast, A City Within a City on January 19th, Howard Weinberg discussing his documentary Namjoon Pike and TV Lab on February 16th, and Jill Godmillo, who will screen her new film, which is a kind of blistering response to Ken Burns and Lynn Novick, Notes and Images from the Vietnam War, on March 16th. We'll be presenting a full calendar of the next few months within the next week, probably. So before we begin, a few little bits of housekeeping. We ask that you all remain muted during the screening so that everyone can hear clearly. When it's time for the Q&A, you can feel free to put your question in the chat. You're welcome to ask questions out loud as well. And if you'd like to do that, you can virtually raise your hand to be called on. If you want to raise your hand, look for the reactions button at the bottom of the Zoom screen, click it, and some options will pop up, including one to raise your hand. If you have trouble finding this feature, you can always write in the chat that you'd like to be called on. We'd also like to point out that this event is being live captioned. There are two ways of viewing the captions: as subtitles on the bottom of the screen, or in a live transcript window that will open up separately. To turn the captions on or off, or to switch between the subtitle and live transcript, look for the live transcript button at the bottom of the screen and click the arrow on the top right. If you enjoy the event tonight and want to share it with others, the event is being recorded and will be posted online within a few days. We'll send you an email when the recording is available. So tonight we're thrilled to have with us pioneering videographer Eddie Becker and scholar Ryan Watson. Just briefly about both of them, Eddie has been recording footage of the instruments of power and those who oppose them in the streets of Washington, D.C. and New York, in Central and South America, and around the world since the days of the Sony Portapak. As a researcher and activist, he has played a part in uncovering abuses of power and changing policies around topics as diverse as the Iran-Contra scandal and the Presidential Records Act. He continues to document protests, police abuse, and the rise of right-wing extremism, including the attempted coup on January 6, 2021. You can find his most recent work on his YouTube channel, which he's named Reporting from the Fringes of American Politics, which I will link to in the chat. Second.
Has declared a state of emergency. Peter Alexander.
Here's the link. The discussion will be moderated by Ryan Watson, a scholar whose extremely exciting work focuses on the developments in activist documentary and the documentation in the era of smartphones, social media, and other digital innovations. He is an associate professor of film and media studies at Misericordia University and has been published widely, including his book, Radical Documentary and Global Crises, Militant Evidence in the Digital Age, which explores the production and the activist employment of documentary media in war zones and areas of extreme oppression around the world. It is highly recommended. So tonight we'll be seeing a series of clips from throughout Eddie's remarkable career as a videographer and video journalist. But first, Ryan, would you like to offer a brief introduction to prepare our viewers?
Sure. So obviously there was a lot to choose from, and I tried to choose things that had sort of certain thematic elements to them. And what we're going to see is a clip from 1983 of a Reverend McIntyre March on Washington. We're going to see two arguments or debates, one between an Antifa member and a Trump supporter, and another between a student who's an atheist and a preacher. We're going to see some really powerful footage from January 6th, 2021, as well as a 1989 pro-choice rally that gets broken up by park police. So it's a quite an interesting array of stuff, but we're going to see the themes of Christian nationalism and white nationalism pretty strongly, these sort of religious and nationalistic themes throughout Eddie's work.
Roll tape.
Roll tape.
How does democracy look? Is democracy coming to the USA?
Well, we're fighting for the Republic.
And what does the Republic stand for?
God-given freedom and liberty from a tyrannical government that we fled from. So here we are. What are we under right now? What are we doing?
Which is a higher law, the Constitution or the Bible?
Well, the Bible, obviously. God granted us that freedom.
So when you have a problem with secession in the Republic, is it decided by the Constitution or by the Bible?
That's a tricky question.
Roman Catholic. I'm from Nebraska, and so got this going. Got these exorcism prayers going. A lot of us priests using them.
Great. Did you do an exorcism at the Capitol?
Yes, I did.
Has possessed the Capitol?
There's a demon called Bahamut, and exorcists have found out that he's the one who is dissolving the country in order to bring it into something different.
You find out about this?
You can see it on YouTube. Father Chad Ripperger. He's an exorcist. You can see it on his channel. He makes reference to it. You get on the internet and you see people with devotion to that demon, Satanists and cultists.
Take that fucking building! They're way back there. No way out. There we go, baby. I'm gonna get a better spot. Sorry. You're alright. Hey! We don't have guns. You cannot use deadly force on somebody that comes here and gets their fucking gun off. Hey, put the fucking gun up. Put it up. Put the fucking gun up. Put your gun out. Wait. Good, bro. Pepper spray. Right.
Hey, what do they got in there? Guns?
He had a pistol.
How many?
Just one cop by himself. Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Freedom. And if we let them steal this election, we ain't gonna have no freedom. I just want to be able to leave my house anytime I want. I'm afraid if we let them steal this election, they're gonna gain too much power and then New World Order, man. I don't want that.
So when you say leave your house, you're afraid of who you'll be afraid of?
The police are attacking us right now, so
you weren't worried about that before, but now
I wasn't worried about that.
But
before.
now you're worried about it.
I'm scared now.
Now why would they choose you?
I don't know, man. I just want to keep this country.
Keep it from what?
From the Democrats.
And what are they going to do? What are the Democrats?
Turn it into Venezuela.
To turn it into Venezuela.
They get up there now.
They need to hear it.
We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
Trump's the top chain of command. He says go home in peace. We go home in peace. Trump is the top of the chain of the command. He says go home in peace. You go home in peace.
Will you follow
You
me
follow
up there?
orders. What?
Will you follow me up there? Tell them that. Because they can't hear you.
Until Trump comes to see us.
I know you heard. We had an election that was.
Don't be scared. Sit on my knees and live versus stand on my feet and die. I'll always stand on my feet. You don't need that mask. It's safe. I will always stand on my feet and fight for what's right, whether Mike Pence wants to or not. Mike Pence, if you certify these votes, you're a traitor.
I have to work on the foot.
What happened? What happened?
I'll go up there. I almost died. I'm going to talk about it. The police, I don't know if they killed people or not. What I do know is either it was piss that was coming down all over me or blood, because people were yelling, I'm dying, I'm dying. And I was screaming at the top of my lungs, begging and pleading for people to get up, but they couldn't get up because there's a pile of people on top of us. But yeah, I wanted to give a speech. If I could just get a megaphone or a microphone, I just want to say my piece that I'm going to leave. I put in my time. I respect anyone who has resolve to run. Just know that you might die tonight. You might die. I almost died.
This is what they do to the people that vote for them. Fuck them motherfuckers. This is our country. Be done with that shit. Stop voting left or right. It's the same shit, different fucking pile. This is our fucking country. This is our fucking time.
All right, man. Good. I just want a megaphone or a microphone, but Captain Retard won't let me speak.
What shall we do?
I don't know what he's doing. He's just standing in the mic.
We're not anarchists, we're patriots. We don't go in and destroy things. They tear businesses apart, they break out windows, they loot, they attack people.
There's 2 dead girls, one shot in the neck, dead, other one shot.
Who shot her?
The SWAT guys, whatever the hell those guys are. They shot two unarmed girls.
There you go. Put your arm around his neck.
There we go.
Let's go. Hey, clear the way.
Make a hole. Clear the way.
Go hole.
Because this is not over.
He's shooting rubber bullets.
What's next? What happens next?
What happens next? 1776 2.0. Get the fuck ready.
What's going to happen? How should people get ready?
What the fuck you think should happen? Lock and load, stay frosty, keep your head on a swivel. Start fucking taking people out.
Which people?
Anybody that does not stand up to the Constitution.
And what does the Constitution say about elections?
Trump won, that's what.
There was a shit ton of patriots and communist police officers, all peaceful. They've been throwing 4-inch mortars, 4-inch mortars at people.
You fucking cowards, you fucking traitors! Fuck you! Get away from the flag, you fucking pussies! You don't fucking get to stand next to that flag that our forefathers fought and died for while you're taking us out! You fucking cowards! Look at you! Look at you! You've already killed one of us! You're gonna kill us all? Is that where we're going?
What goes on in this country is the wealth gap increases every year. The richer get richer, the poorer get poorer. Jobs cannot
Whose
support
choice is
a
that?
living wage.
Whose choice is that?
Whose choice is that? Whose choice is that? I think it's the rich people who decide the wages of the
No, I'm
worker.
not rich, and that's my choice.
You're right. You're lucky. You're the outlier. As I said,
if I'm the
majority of
outlier,
Americans,
if
they don't work
if I'm the
jobs
reason-
that can support a basic living. Most people can't afford basic needs. I think the poverty line in America is about $34,000 a year. Most people.
Whose fault is that?
Whose fault is that? Our country's.
Let me tell you,
capitalism.
I just told you right now, I'm a 3-time convicted felon.
I get that.
How in the world was I supposed to get a job?
As I
When-
said,
when
you are an outlier,
I
my
just,
friend. I congratulate
okay.
you because you did an amazing job where most people can't.
When everyone told me we would love to hire you, but our insurance won't be able to cover you, and I had a family to support.
Yeah.
But where I'm at right now,
I have to congratulate you, man, because that is not what most people end up.
Okay. I'm no different from anybody.
But you tried and you succeeded.
And why can't
because
they?
You had some luck, unfortunately.
Why? Why?
There are men and women who try just as hard as you to do what you're doing with the same, with three felonies, and they're not able to.
being said, I've been stereotyped, I've been profiled. And when a police
I believe
officer
it.
comes to me, they ask me if I've been in prison or in jail. I just, you know what? I already know what's going to happen. But my point is this: it doesn't stop me from thinking different. Perseverance. It doesn't stop when my child.
Perseverance works a lot. And I'll give you that.
and
but
that
unfortunately,
is.
for the majority of people, it doesn't.
What's your name
the
again?
majority of people try to persevere. They try their hardest.
It
It's not an
is.
excuse. It is a broken system where most people
No,
can't.
from us, it's not. And it's not. It's
You
an excuse.
succeeded where most people can't.
Well,
Very
then, same
few
here
people
too.
who
It's
do
another
What do you
one.
mean a broken system?
What do I mean a broken system? The wealth gap increasing every single year. To right now, where CEOs in this country make 300 times more than the average worker, where in the 70s they only made about 25 times more.
But these guys say enough trickles down to them so that happens.
Unfortunately, they're an outlier, and the majority of people in this country who are in a similar situation
I got a question for
are
you.
not as lucky
I got
as
a
you.
question for you. Not to bring up the Obama and all that stuff. Okay, no, but
Obama's
what I'm
bad
trying to say is the medical. I make good money, and I can't afford insurance for my children. Now, hold on, all right? But everyone else, and I'm not against pre-existing conditions for people. I think everyone should have insurance, but it's not fair that I can't afford it, but everyone else can that don't want to struggle in life. So I do believe from glory to glory, there is a bridge called struggle, which a lot of people don't want to cross that bridge because they don't know what it is to be
Tell that
American.
to a woman who works 3 jobs.
I'll tell it to anybody who has a life, who has
basic living.
I'll tell that to anybody who has a brain, anyone who has fingers and work, anyone who has a will to survive.
Works 80 hours a week to try
Brother,
to feed their
I had to
their
work
child.
3 jobs because nobody gave me a job.
You're great. That's great, man. That's
Okay.
great. You were able to
But,
persevere. Some people try as
I'm
hard
not
as you
no
and don't
different
succeed.
from
There are
nobody.
tons of people who try as hard as you and
Well-
don't succeed.
well, they should
What country is
continue.
better? What country is better than this?
I think our country has many great things, but I also
What
think
country is better than ours, economically?
economically, Germany.
Who?
So,
Germany who has socialized medicine and many socialized.
but that
programs.
doesn't
Yes, I
have
do
socialized
believe
medicine has nothing to do with the economy.
Socialized medicine, you know, where a lot of people start struggling when insurance prices increase.
That's
Where their
You're talking
basic
about jobs.
costs-
You're
I
talking
am
about
talking-
affording to pay for a living. Your cost of living.
You assume that I have an obligation. If you're even going to give me the time of day, dude, you assume that I need to make sense when I'm talking to you. But in a world where there is no God, why am I obligated to be rational?
You're not obligated. It's just you can't expect me to take that in an intelligent way and actually process it. And there are some people like me and these people in this crowd that decide that they're not going to do things, take on moral assumptions, or live certain actions unless they've intelligently processed it. And telling me that Jesus came and died for me is not something I can intelligently process because I have no evidence of it, and the fact of the matter is, objectively, nobody has any evidence of it. There are private feelings that people retroactively claim is evidence of the existence of God, but I could claim them as the existence of Jesus or of homosexuality as being the supreme way of life. I could claim it as being anything, but
how do you know that?
How do I know what?
How do you know that? How do you come to conclusions about reality?
Well, there's a mathematical process that we call logic that's been studied, can be studied. There's a lot of dispute, but mostly people agree. And empiricism is the study of evidence which is commonly observed. Anything that can be commonly observed, private feelings that can't be transmitted, that people, things like God exist, there is no common observation of that. That's the reason why we don't believe schizophrenic people when they tell us about their friends.
Trust your senses and reasoning to determine whether something's true or not, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Insofar as I'm following the mathematical process of logic.
Sure. Did you sense that your senses were valid?
Did I sense that they were valid? I experienced them directly. It is observation.
So you sense that your senses were valid?
I had no other choice.
That's viciously circular. It's a logical fallacy.
No, it's not, because you have no other choice. No, it's the essence of proof. That's a misinterpretation of how fallacy works.
No.
You have no choice. What would you look like if you didn't believe your senses were valid? How would you go about doing anything?
I know that I can justify my senses are valid without having to appeal to a logical fallacy to do it, because just hear me out. I know you don't. I know you don't. No, but to determine whether observation is valid or not, you have to use observation, your senses, and your reasoning to determine that your senses and reasoning are valid.
Only if there exists a counter.
It's a vicious circle.
Only if
just hear me out for just a second. The reason why I'm making that point is that the entire atheistic worldview is built on logical fallacies and assumptions that can't be justified. But see, when you begin with God and you begin with a transcendent personal lawgiver that's created you in His image, has made your senses and your reasoning
How is that
function.
any more logical? How is that any more logical?
You made it up.
You didn't tell me yet.
You made it up. How do you validate that?
Because without it, you can't know anything. Let me give you an example.
I can't know anything.
Just let me finish. In a world where there is no God, where we're all basically just molecules banging around. That's right.
Okay.
In a world where there is no God, where we're just molecules banging around, you can't account for immaterial abstract laws in a world where there is no God, because we're all just matter in motion.
Based on mathematics.
Hold on just a second. Yeah, but can you hand me the number 1?
Absolutely not. But it's
no, because it's an immaterial concept that you're a world you can't account for.
I can, absolutely.
Materialism cannot
it's a material concept. You're misunderstanding mathematics.
Can you give me a bucket of 1?
I can give you 1 umbrella. It's in your hand.
No. I'm not talking about the instantiation of 1. I'm talking about the concept. I'm not talking about the numeral.
Not a single educated
Let me
give me a blue.
I'm not talking. No, because it's an immaterial abstract concept.
It's an adjective.
In my
it's a
worldview,
linguistic concept.
No, I don't think you understand logic, because you're doing things like mixing the order of numbers in a subtraction problem and giving me the same answer. Right? We know that that's wrong. That's what you're doing linguistically.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the basic preconditions of intelligibility.
But you're telling me I can't make up my senses, and then you're telling me the alternative is to make up God. My senses are here. It's simple observation. It doesn't require logical process. You're misunderstanding. Logical process is to conceive of these abstract ideas.
Did you reason to that, to come to that logical process, that it doesn't require a logical process?
It's not a logical process.
Did you reason that it
No, I
doesn't
didn't
require a
reason my
logical
senses.
process?
You didn't reason your senses. I didn't reason my senses. They're here in front of us.
That's not what you just said. You said that it doesn't require a logical process to come to the conclusion that I don't need a logical process to come to my senses or understand that my senses.
I don't remember saying it nearly that many times, but I'll say it the way I meant to say it if I didn't. My senses require no logical process to observe. So how can it be? You are putting those words in my mouth when you construct the fallacy that is it requires a logical process to establish logic. I establish logic through my senses, which exist right before me. My senses are the only thing I have to experience the world and the things that are happening, and from that implies the entire system of logic. Mathematics derives from my ability to distinguish between the fact that you have 2 hands and 1 umbrella. That's because of my senses, and it makes perfect sense to me. Nothing doesn't add up there. But when you start to tell me about God, it doesn't add up.
For years, television has been very good at presenting high points of demonstrations and confrontations. This next tape is a raw tape. Nothing is edited. It's real time during a demonstration in Washington for pro-choice.
They can have 5 minutes to make up their mind.
Wait a minute.
5 minutes. 5 minutes to make up their mind.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Either you're going to walk out of here without anything with you and go about your business, or you're going to be locked up. 5 minutes.
I got to find out something. You said the word.
Signs down. Signs down. You are not going to come out and have us running all over this city.
No, I know.
It's over. It is over. You understand that?
You're the one making
5 minutes. Get out of my face. You understand me? You'll be the first.
Hey, he can't tell you that. He can't tell us that.
You're not part of this protest.
You're
part of this protest?
He goes right in with us. You heard the announcement. Excuse us, there's another one coming in.
He's not part of the protest.
Excuse me.
Just like China! Just like China! Just like China! Just like China! Just like China!
We need to leave.
Ma'am, are you ready to go?
We're trying to be better.
Do you want to leave?
That's what we're getting people to
Do you want to leave? I'm asking you, not
We're gonna
your
leave.
people.
We're gonna leave.
You. I'm asking you.
Yes. We have made our statement here. We have gotten as close to the crosses and the reactionary vets as we can. We're being allowed in this park. We are ready to leave now. We have made our statement here.
We want to go home. We are finished for the day.
Yeah, we got no hassle with you guys. Come back in this park with any of your symbols on you, you will still be identified as this group. You understand that? All of you. All of you. Your demonstration is over and void.
You cannot do that.
You have a permitted area, and I'm not explaining it to you, and you're out. All right? I'm talking to you. All right, now I'll let you out of here right now, because evidently you understand what's going to happen.
This is good exposure for recognizing what the state's all about. It's not ready. We can't argue with them because they're going to lock us all up. They've got paddy wagons.
There is none.
Okay, is everybody clear? We made our statement. We're going to go.
Going to the corporate.
Okay, no. Can we not take our banners? No, they said you can't take them. They cannot do that. Okay. Down. Put the banners down and let's leave.
This way only.
You can't afford it. You can't afford to take the banners.
They can't take them. It's against the law. They can't do that.
Okay, we can take the banners. Roll up the banners. Roll up the banners. Take them.
You don't play games.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'll take
We're done with it.
Let's go.
Roll up the banners. Roll up the banners and we can go.
Finally figured it out.
Yours already. Stay tight. Stay tight.
Staying or going?
Come on up. I'll trade your tape. Right through here. Watch the traffic, please. Watch the traffic. Be careful. Thank you. Gotta wait till the traffic stops, brother.
Sir, out of the street, sir.
It has to not only be exposed, but fought, refused to go along with it, and resisted at every turn. And we're here today, particularly around the oppression of women, has concentrated in their efforts to force women to become mothers. We've made a statement. We're clear. Let's go, because there are many more days to carry this battle forward in. It's only Friday. You ain't seen nothing yet.
What's the issues in this demonstration?
The issues? The issues are the right, the woman's right to choose. You know, and it's a lot of Vietnam vets come down here on this because we feel that this is just another attack on people. That, you know, they want to force women to become like incubators and everything else, and taking away rights that was won a long time ago. Just like the government right now is coming down telling people you can't burn a flag no more. But we fought in Vietnam, and the right to speak out and say what you think about what's happening, we're fighting it. The government's trying to stop us from doing that.
We support the right to choose, because we're supposed to stand for freedom. And we've learned that the place that we need to fight for freedom is right here at home.
I don't know where he comes from. We believe in standing for righteousness and standing against communism, freedom. We believe in America. We believe thank God for Reagan. We thank God for Bush. It tells us in God's word that we should. So that's why we come, and we're glad you came with us.
Did we see what you got?
Tell me what your party stands for.
Well, we're a national socialist political organization designed to represent the vital racial needs and aspirations of the white people in America.
What kind of a future do you want to see in the United States?
We want to see a white future for white people.
And what about all the other people who aren't white?
Well, we favor the complete geographical and political separation of the races.
What would that mean concretely?
It would mean the races would be separated. We're not too concerned how this happens. We're more concerned that we do have racial separation.
How about Connecticut here?
Reverend McIntyre is against communism, but we go one step further. We point out who is responsible for communists, who are the communists, and we are against communists, not just a term, an ambiguous term like communism.
Okay, well, who are the communists?
Communism is Jewish, from Karl Marx, who started it, to right on down through the Russian Revolution.
Okay, Oregon.
I'm from Dr. McIntyre's group. We have not invited any of these fringe groups that, like National Socialist White People's Party.
Those of you who believe in this nation have served in its battlefronts. If they pass a genocide treaty, do you realize that if you engage in a battle on foreign soil, even though it's to support your country, that you can be taken into a foreign court and tried for murder under the genocide treaty, and still the American Bar Association is supporting it. Somebody is sick somewhere in that committee.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud of this march. I'm proud of it. We didn't have as many as I thought we'd like to have, but we had the right ones, and we had the people who mean business with these issues, and this is enough to get this thing rolling again.
In the liberation theology, which takes the Bible and gives it an all-new meaning, they seek to do it by using or misusing the Bible. Now, the word conversion means becoming a social activist. The word fellowship is the word solidarity. Solidarity is a term that's being used in all these third world countries today.
Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war. With the cross of Jesus, going on before.
And I'll tell you something else. If we'd had George Washington in the White House, we never would have fired a General MacArthur. We would have let him win the war in South Korea. This is the spirit that gave our country birth, and we've lost it. We don't have it. Now, we ought to have had the President of the United States giving us a greeting this afternoon. He went off to Camp David. That's where Nixon went 10 years ago. They fly away, they fly away. It's the cause, it's the issue, it's the victory, it's our country, it's the flag, it's the honor, it's victory. This is our country, and it's worth fighting for.
God bless America, my home sweet home.
Thanks so much, Eddie and Ryan. That was remarkable. Ryan, shall I hand things over to you? Would you like to start the conversation?
Sure.
And just to repeat, if anybody would like to ask any questions, you can either raise your hand virtually if you would like to say it, or type into the chat. And Ryan, I'll monitor this stuff too, so you can just focus on the conversation.
Okay, great. So Eddie, I'll start with the first question, and thank you to Adam for inviting me, and thank you to Eddie for working with us, and it's really been fun getting to know you over the past couple of weeks. First question was, in the clip with the preacher and the student, we see an example of what you call Christian bullying, and then in the 83 clip that we saw at the end with Reverend McIntyre, we see representations of Christian nationalism and white nationalism. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what those terms mean And then have you noticed a change in rhetoric or tactics over time? This is going to lead to the second question, which is going to be talking about January 6th, but I thought we would start there with those broader themes. Oh, I think you've got to unmute. Yep.
All right. Sorry.
There you go.
Christian nationalism. There's a certain insistence that everything will be okay if everyone believed in that particular God. And it all has to do with, what I see is a nationalistic movement around the world. I mean, and a return to a conservative, fundamentalist, hierarchical religious movement, whether it's in the Islamic world, Hindu, Israel, in the United States as well, as the empire here and in other places. The future even of our own earth becomes uncertain. Once in a 100-year calamities happening every other year, a certain uncertainty of the future, and a growing distrust of science. It wasn't able to solve the COVID. People felt that science was to blame for this. This country, in the beginning, it's supposedly with the Enlightenment, with a kind of an idea that we can figure things out through science. And increasingly, people are beginning to distrust science. So the insistence, this kind of element in evangelicalism, which is specific to Christianity, but it's also true of the other religions. You have to believe in this, and if everyone believed in it, then the world would be better. And so that's the movement that I now reflect on.
In the clip that we saw on January 6th, obviously it was very powerful. What was it like to be there and filming that day? And do you feel like that day was a culmination of this right-wing Christian nationalist rhetoric that you've recorded in lots of other videos in previous decades? Did you feel like that was sort of the culmination of something that day?
I think it was the beginning. I think, one thing that comes after a failed coup is a successful one, whether it comes through force of arms or through the election. I think that, there's
Pero bueno, vamos,
I can't.
ya vi los videos, va.
I'm hearing some background noise, but anyways, yes. So yeah, that's what's happening now. This is just the beginning, and they're going to be more successful in the future. And as the empire shrinks, I mean, as it seems as if there's another superpower that may be more powerful than ours, we will find that there's a tendency to revert to someone who has all of the answers. And democracy is tied up in confusion, in fighting with each other, in a kind of inability to solve problems. And so people will be looking for, a central power to make all of the decisions and solve all the problems.
And being there that day, how did it feel on the 6th?
So, I mean, I was very cautious. I mean, I didn't go to where the battles were, but they were like kind of in front of me. I was just, if you concentrate on one particular place, you get to know it and you get to talk to people, and I moved within it without, also being honest about where I was coming from. People were so enthusiastic. They felt that they were so right. They felt that, they were living the Constitution. They were performing God's will, that that anyone who's sort of like questioning them, that they feel that they could convince me. So it was a perfect place to be filming. And, I felt welcomed.
One thing, and this is transitioning to the next question, we saw, I think, in the January 6th clip, or an absence of something we saw in the January 6th clip, was an absence of police, really, except until the end. And then in the 1989 pro-choice rally that we saw that was being broken up by the park police, that was really fascinating to watch. I was just wondering, in general, have you noticed a difference in how police treat right versus left-wing protesters in other instances?
Well, in almost all of the other instances where I'm dealing with Proud Boys and with the militias and with these right-wing people, they're praising the police. They're saying, we're on your side. We respect the police. They had the flags with the blue stripes in it. And on the other hand, when demonstrations against police brutality, against, during the Black Lives Matter movement and with the people dressed in black, there was the police felt directly threatened. And as this is unfolding from, let's say, when I first started filming in the early 1970s during the anti-Vietnam War marches and throughout Central America and other demonstrations, the police would always preemptively attack demonstrators. It was during the World Bank IMF demonstrations, they would just arrest people the way they dressed, or if they were, before they committed any kind of, a group of people would just be corralled and arrested. What happened was the police lost all those law cases. Millions of dollars were paid to these victims, and the police were constrained. So now they couldn't go after those folks. So they used to mistreat people. I mean, during the IMF World Bank, they locked people's wrists to their ankles for 20 hours. Now they can't do that. So here's a group like the Proud Boys who are marching down the streets saying, fuck Antifa. We're gonna tear you apart. I mean, for the police, this is something they would sort of, I think, support. So they weren't so concerned about these Proud Boys and about these people who came to town saying they were going to kick the shit out of people who criticized the police. They were supportive of that. So I'm not surprised that the police were caught off guard.
Yeah, no, exactly. You mentioned the 70s. Could you talk a little bit about how you got your start in the 70s, particularly as a sort of textual-based researcher? And the reason I'm asking this is because you have a hand in what's now the Modern Presidential Records Act, which means presidents have to keep all of their communications. They didn't previously have to do that until you came along. So how did that happen as well?
Well, I think in part it's based on my desire to get the proof. So I was very impressed with Daniel Ellsberg and his attempt to end the war in Vietnam by releasing all of these top secret documents. So textual research, and I was working with some people in Italy who wanted to find out what happened after World War II when their TV system got set up. I mean, to predate that, I guess, I have to say that it began basically knowing how to solder, connect two wires, because everything would break in the early equipment. So you had to know how to fix cables. And I taught myself how to fix cables. So I became someone who was necessary, and it was a technical thing, and I'd wire things up and I'd create different things. Anyway, but getting into the textual research, when computers first came in, I was very interested in how they worked and could fix them. And then when I was working, having done this research in the National Archive on the early history of US policy towards Italy, at least after World War II, I became pretty skillful at finding documents and combined that with my interest in computers. So during Iran Contra, which I worked on at the National Security Archive, I had familiarity with people at the National Archive and found out that they were going to recycle the backup tapes used to reconstruct what happened when they were basically selling weapons to Iran and using those proceeds to get around the congressional forbiddenness of supplying the Contras. So the Bolin Amendment. So anyway, they were going to erase those backup tapes. And I said, well, they're records. And they were very careful to say, no, they're backup tapes, and they put back into the system and erased. So we got a temporary restraining order, and the archive in one attempt tried to transfer those records to the private side of the presidential library. So the records would still be controlled by the president on the private side rather than the National Archive. And the records law was pretty clear. They were trying all sorts of ways to allow the president, after they left office, to still have control over their records. And, it was just a matter of like showing them what the law said and going to court and spending hours on litigation to do that. And my co-plaintiff got really good at it. And Gary Stern is now the general counsel of the National Archive, and initiated this raid on Mar-a-Lago to get federal and presidential records back under the authority of the American people through the National Archive. So I'm still interested in the documents. I'm still interested in trying to get the records of what was going on at the time. And I see also doing interviews and finding out what's happening and asking people things and following those things, informing the way I ask questions, informing the kind of documentaries I've been making lately.
Speaking of the way you ask questions, you mentioned soldering, and you mentioned to me when we had been talking something interesting about a custom microphone that you soldered together in order to facilitate the interviews. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
This is my setup. This is my setup. And, I have this very directional microphone, which is great because in the middle of like a crowd of people screaming, I can still pick up the audio. But my own voice wouldn't be picked up because it eliminates the voices from behind. So inside of here, I've matched up this little lavalier mic. So this picks up my sound. So this cable goes in and it's all right and left channel on stereo. And that's how I'm able to do the audio. And also I send it through an additional amplifier. So so I can hear, and then I have another gizmo that takes the right and left channel, but it just sends me the sound from one mic into both ears. Because normally with a stereo headphone, the right and left channel is split. So yeah, I mean, this is all hardened to be used in those sorts of situations. There's
right.
a special clamp here, and this is metal, and then it's like a rubber thing here, and I'm able to like zoom and turn on with one lens, and then it's open, and I'm shooting with one hand with this kind of mount, where I can hold it like this and bring it really high. So, yeah. So
yeah, battle hardened.
Battle hardened, yes. And now equipment just wears out rather than gets like destroyed.
And I think the microphone is ingenious. I mean, to be able to record both of those things at the same time. Last two questions. First one is, we had looked at two debates. We saw the Antifa member versus the Trump supporter, and then we saw the college student atheist versus the preacher. Why do you think that those on your YouTube channel, not the Antifa one necessarily, but the preacher one, was the most popular one that you've ever put up? And the debate one seemed to be popular in general on your YouTube channel. So why do you think that is, that those debate ones seem to break through?
I don't know. Ever since preteen, you're asking yourself, does God exist? What's the story on both sides? So yeah, that debate, I think, clearly defines whether God exists. And the street preacher is, skillful at doing the debate. This kid was a freshman in college, and we've stayed in touch, and he was excellent. So people who are interested in debate, interested in religion, and somehow it's like become part of a list. So, I mean, every day there are hundreds of people watching that debate.
Yeah, you mentioned that, is that you see hundreds of hits every day of people watching it. So yeah, I think it's what, 760,000 views so far.
Yeah.
Then final question was, in our conversations, you mentioned that you felt like it was only the last 10 or 15 years that you've truly found your voice as a documentarian. Why is that, and how would you describe what your approach is and how you see your voice?
You know, I mean, my voice was always filled with doubt, and I never knew, you know, I'd always ask the questions, and sometimes I think that they weren't so good. So being able to edit myself strengthened me a bit, but also becoming more confident in the pursuit I had. So the combination of, like, I mean, before that, I had to be dependent upon like other people to create these things. And so now I have the camera, I have the editing system, I have YouTube outreach. So that lets me, and you'll see on my YouTube channel, there's all sorts of different types of things that I've been shooting. And the beginning of being able to trust myself as I go into a situation where there's kind of a chaos going on, and then seeing a pattern or trying to find a pattern or following a path through those kind of chaos to come together and have enough stuff to pull it together and make a story. So there's lots of different places I go to practice that. Like in the White House, there's always someone on a soapbox telling a story. Or I would go to a dog park and the dogs are running around, and then I'll try to like figure out what dog is doing what. Or at a drum circle where there's a cacophony of people banging on drums, and then all of a sudden I see a story and I follow that. So yeah, so it's not that I go there with like a pre-planned idea, but you know, I know that like in almost any situation I can find something to be of interest.
So, all right, well, that was my final question, and I know I see a couple of questions are coming up in the chat, so I'll turn it over to Adam to moderate those. But thank you again, Eddie, and again, it's been a pleasure getting to know you over the past few weeks, and thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ryan. We do have a couple of questions. Mike Cousins says that he's always thought of you as a modern day I.F. Stone, and he wonders if you know his work or ever met I.F. Stone.
Yeah, I mean, I.F. Stone and his newsletter were, you know, I knew Izzy some, and he spent a lot of time going through volumes of federal reports, just pulling out stories that nobody ever knew, but it was all public stuff. It was amazing. His newsletter, the I.F. Stone Weekly. Yeah. So thank you for Michael Cousins.
There's another question about, well, recently we saw former PM Abe of Japan assassinated for grievances of Japanese politicians being connected to churches such as the Unification Church. Do you have any comments on the relationship between the state and religion?
Well, a lot of the videos I have deal with that, because there's a whole movement to make, you know, the Bible the supreme law of the land, and to somehow like make religion more established. which would be a kind of disaster. I mean, the founding fathers certainly were more involved in trying to unite people, and they believed in a kind of more Masonic view of the world. At that time, they just didn't see religion as being very scientific, and the Masons and builders and people who had been coming out of the mercantile class, although they were like, you know, very much engaged in taking the land from Native Americans and enslaving people to extract the wealth, they were still very much not so much into religion as the author. Although, I mean, the only time that George Washington is said to have mentioned Christianity and Jesus was an army directive that had to do with containing the indigenous people in the United States, the Indians, and calling them savages and saying that they had to get with on the path of Jesus. So that's, you know, the whole idea of like a religion and its relationship with the state, religion and its and a belief system, a kind of psychological warfare used throughout history by, you know, from the very beginning. There has to be that, you know, there has to be some. It's also partly a human quality to want to have a beginning and an end. So not so much an end. I mean, if you ask people who are religious, if they're, you know, what happens after you die, it's like your spirit lives on forever. But when you ask them, you know, when did things begin? Sometimes they'll have like 6,000 years. Sometimes it's the Big Bang. You know, there has to be sort of a beginning to stuff. I see, you know, and now they're confused because maybe with the Webb telescope, they're not sure if the Big Bang actually might have happened. There's always, you know, I always figured there was something before the Big Bang. So, you know, they're continually revising when the creation was. And I'm just saying, you know, maybe it's already existed. And the idea of infinity and then no end to everything. I mean, so with my own philosophical ideas of like just throwing these things out, it's fun. It's fun to speculate on that and to talk with religious people, although, you know, they basically revert to a very they're ideologues. You know, they already figured it out.
So Max in Media Burn HQ actually would like to say something.
All right, Max.
Yes, coming live from Media Burn HQ. So less of a question, more of a share about the debate that Eddie shared between the preacher and the student. Sorry if I'm dating myself a little bit here, but that video came out about 8 years ago. I believe I was a junior in high school at the time, at a private Catholic high school in Minnesota. Not just Catholic, it was Lasallian Catholic, so it was run by monks. So you can guess what that was like. It was noted in the video that the algorithm seems to be not showing this video anymore, but I want to sort of share that it was very much promoted for me when I was when I was a high schooler. It was on all of my YouTube feeds because, as you can imagine, as a student in a Catholic high school, I was constantly searching things like atheist debate, religious zealots, and all these things. The thing I'll share is that I had a required class in high school called Scripture. And once a semester, each student got to share a video or something for like a prayer at the beginning of the class. And I actually shared Eddie's video at the beginning of that class. Didn't go over well. I had to say after school. So I'm sorry that it's currently being repressed by the algorithm, but it did me very well. When
the whole YouTube channel is being ghosted, as they say.
Yeah.
And even like, you know, one of my videos shot on January 5th, which basically was a prelude and a warning to what was coming, because I'm interviewing people who have brought guns and have like been arrested the next day for like having bear spray and bats. That was all wiped out by YouTube because they went in and the algorithm had stop the steal. So I think initially they wanted to like just wipe out anything quickly that was like that, and then relegated my videos to not being suggested for the next video. So if you go to something that's popular on ABC, CBS, or whatever that deals with religion, it used to be that my video, based on how many people had been looking at it, would be the next one up. And now you can't find it. And if you do a Google search for the title of that or any of the elements of it, you won't find it either. But it's still like you, Max, I mean, still getting lots of people coming to it and recommending it.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. HWP, would you like to unmute and
Sure. Yeah. Hi, Eddie. It's Helen Weiss, and hi, Joni and Jeff and Skip.
Oh, Helen. Wow.
And yeah, hey, sorry, my camera's not on, but this is amazing. So which of all these stories that you've covered over the years do you feel was the most important? Is there one to just kind of say, well, that was when they're so difficult, you never thought you'd get it or it will be saved?
Well, I mean, yeah, I never thought of that question. I'm always thinking that like all of the videos that I make, when I make them, I really enjoy making them and I really enjoy editing them and I really enjoy putting them out. They're all like my little babies, and I have some favorite ones, you know, I like some better than others, and there are like some that I really like that, you know, that doesn't get picked up. And now, you know, that I'm kind of muted by YouTube, most of them are just heard about from my subscribers. They don't have a life after themselves. So, I mean, I thought the January 6th was important. The approach that I've taken with most of these things is showing that a lot of the people who are coming to these events are coming with this religious ideology, and they think that like almost that God has chosen Trump, that there's some sort of supernatural force that they feel justified in doing. If you have God on your side, you can commit any kind of like unspeakable thing. And I mean, you know, just so that's the thing. You can't, it's hard to reason with people like that. More of those than like QAnon characters. And then there's another aspect to the kind of work that I've been doing, because behind all of these characters who appear sort of as actors almost, are the economic forces that finance the Congress people who are engaged in trying to get favorable regulations for the people who finance them. And so I started to get into doing power structure research of some of these, one bank in particular that's come out of the South that used to be called SunTrust and BB&T. And it's formed what was the 6th largest bank, Truist. And they're supporting all of these characters in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia, who on the local level have gerrymandered themselves into permanent positions in Congress, which allow them to have seniority and get the kind of legislation that allowed things favorable to this bank, which had to do with their financing of the fossil fuel industry, the private prisons, student loans, car loans, you know, very much into like cars, and you know, all sorts of like things like that. And
let me ask one question.
Oh, just one follow-up. Can you get the Internet Archive if you're interested in saving all this, since you're essentially being repressed by YouTube?
Well, amazingly, the Internet Archive did pick up that January 5th piece of mine before it got banned. So they were intuitive in that. Yeah. So that was amazing. Tom, you had a question.
Yeah, looking forward, you see every young person with their camera, right? Everybody in the world's got one. Do you see that being able to change the way we see things? In other words, when we first got portable video, we took it on as something that we could share with the world, and it mattered. And now, I mean, YouTube certainly is shared with the world in lots of ways, and people with their cameras, but it's a different deal. I'm just looking at what you think about that future, and will it go in a direction that's the same kind of direction that you've been trying to go? You know what I'm saying?
So I think that, like, basically the way that the algorithms now are increasingly working on YouTube is narrowing the selection that you're having from both the right and the left. And it's almost like not getting back to the three networks, but when you look at an issue, you're just going to get the network stuff with CNN, MS, and Fox News, the established corporate interpretation of events. Yeah, so yeah, they've gotten back to that. They've for obvious reasons, they muzzled a lot of and so and I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, how do you feel about Twitter having censored Trump and now letting him back on? I mean, and they've done that with a lot of other people and a lot of other voices.
Yeah.
And which voices to muzzle, okay, and which voices to demonetize. So a lot of my pieces are demonetized as well.
De facto, I mean, just by not putting them on, there's no.
By not getting them seen, I mean, obviously my right. I mean, I'm still doing it, but hoping in one day, like the blinders will be taken off. I'll have freedom. All of a sudden, my stuff will just burst out there. I'm still waiting for my big break.
That's why we saved all that tape, Eddie.
Thank you. And yes, Tom and I have worked together since a long time, and we met at the Alternative Media Festival in Goddard College in 70-ish?
70 or 71, huh?
71, yeah. And it changed my life.
Me too. I'd never seen video before that.
Well, this was an absolutely fantastic conversation. I want to thank Ryan Watson and add another recommendation for his book, which I linked in the chat. Thank Max for taking care of the tech side of this. And most of all, thank Eddie Becker for joining us and sharing his remarkable body of work with all of us.
To all my friends, thank you so much. To all of the people I've met through the work I've been doing, Miss Terry Mate, and all of everyone else, you've done a fantastic job. Everyone's been so helpful and grateful. Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right.